Welcome to BrandBusters with your hosts, James Schwinn and Sean Lee. Together, we bust open the latest in CPG, retail media, and life, or whatever the we want. And for today's episode, we got something special cooked up for ya. Extra spicy. Take it away, Sean.
All right. We're here for episode 6 of the BrandBusters. Let's go. So today we're going to talk about some controversy that I'm seeing all over X and LinkedIn, which is the Amazon inbound shipment fees that just launched, and everybody's in a tizzy because it looks like it could just be a money grab from Amazon. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to dig into Walmart acquiring Vizio and whether or not we think it was a great acquisition or a so-so acquisition. And then we're going to end with some a little irreverent fun. We're going to brand bust the Manscaped brand and some of the fun antics that they've been able to do as they've had a tremendous growth story over the past few years. So we're excited.
I think we're going to have a ball with that one, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. You
maybe
might
two.
Be a little. Yeah, you might be a little. People might feel like we left them a little bare at the end of it.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's great. So we'll talk about Amazon fees right to start. So March 1st, Amazon changed the way that they bring in inbound shipping for Seller Central. So anybody shipping product into Amazon, FBA or fulfilled by Amazon, Amazon said they've telegraphed this since November, December of last year. They said that overall, all the fees that they're changing over the coming months, March, April, May, and June, should be about a 15-cent increase per unit for anybody that's sending stuff into Amazon and selling on Amazon, which, sounds pretty modest and, doesn't seem that crazy. But we're seeing a ton of people push back in backlash on Twitter and LinkedIn on the fees that started showing up on March 1st for inbound shipping. I own a company that sends in about 500,000 items a year to Amazon. We have not sent any new inbound shipping in yet, so I'm sure I'll be just as fired up in the next week or so when we start shipping it in. But basically what Amazon's trying to do is they're trying to get more regional so that they can deliver stuff faster to the end consumer. So before, you might ship to one or two distribution centers fairly close to your warehouse. When you were sending into FBA, Amazon would receive that product and then fan it out to, their 30, 40 different fulfillment centers that are closer to the consumer. But if you think about it, you were really only paying to send that. Like for us in Cincinnati, I'll send it to Indianapolis and maybe one other distribution center. Amazon receives that, and then the cost is on Amazon to move it through their network to everyone else, right? So it's only natural that someone at Amazon, put on their pocket protector and their glasses and looked at their Excel spreadsheet and said, hey, we could probably make some money if we push this back on the sellers versus us paying to move this stuff around. So now they're charging an inbound fee, an inbound receiving fee. They're changing some of the shipping that you would pay for them to pick up and bring it throughout. But it's causing quite a tizzy. And James, I'll share and read an example that I saw on Twitter recently. So let me share my screen with everybody here, and I will read it to everybody that's listening so that we can go on from there. So this is, and I do not know this person, Molson Hart on Twitter said, last week we paid Amazon $373 to restock our Amazon inventory. This week, Amazon's new system quoted us at $852. But that's if we want to split the products into 3 shipments. If we want to ship just one like we did before, it's almost $1,300. So for this person, they're saying that's about an extra $100,000 of extra costs per year. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty significant. I mean, I know that I'm going to be pissed off when I see our first bill for our VitaBox business that we own, which is an Amazon reseller. We ship quite a bit in, but it just goes to show that as Amazon gets pressure from Wall Street, and they're really, besides Walmart, the only player in the game, they can keep squeezing and pushing fees. I think this is the first time I've seen this much backlash. Amazon won't reverse course now, but I think you'll start to see in the coming quarters other fee reductions or things to appease some of the sellers, because this clearly is not sustainable.
No, and Sean, like for all the private label sellers or just independent third-party sellers on Amazon, this isn't the P&Gs of the world that will feel it. By the end of the day, like this is not just a rounding error, like 100,000 an
Yeah, for a
incremental
small
cost.
seller.
Yeah, that's going to directly affect the companies, the bottom line, what they're able to pay their employees as well. So that'll be interesting. I think the other follow-on piece here is we also know there's their peak periods. So we know that the fulfillment rates go up typically around Q4. So how are there now surge periods for the inventory rate as well? So like you said, I'm sure they'll do something, but they want to set the precedent now. And then we'll kind of engineer it to a way that it still probably will piss off all sellers and all brands that are on Amazon. But this is Amazon 101. I mean, this is classic Amazon move,
This
right?
is what they do.
These are only going to increase. They're not going to decrease. Like they're going to find ways. They have to continue to uncover ways to drive up their revenue on marketplace. So you have to really, I think, be steadfast about how are you sourcing material, how are you advertising, what tools, how are you servicing the channel, because this trend is never going to go away. Not anytime.
No. And Amazon what are their goals, right? They want the best price for their consumer, and they want to get it to them as quickly as possible. So what they're trying to do is like put the onus on the sellers to get it to DCs that are closer to the consumer. The other fee that they're rolling out in April, which will also piss a lot of people off, is a low inventory fee. So if you have inventory at a lot of the DCs that average below 28 days of cover, they're going to start charging you in a low inventory per item fee if you're not keeping enough stock there. So now you've got overstock. If you have too many days of cover there, they start charging you long-term storage. Now they're charging you low inventory. So sellers are really going to have to thread the freaking needle and forecast perfectly to make sure you're not getting hit on the low end or the high end from Amazon with additional fees.
We call that being damned if you do, damned if you don't, Sean.
Correct. I think the big challenge I see there is for a lot of sellers and brands, it's not always just on them forecasting poorly. It's supply chain, their suppliers aren't getting things to them on time, so they might go into this low inventory mode. So with anything in business and consumer goods, or if you're selling a product, like it's not always just on you. There's external factors, and I think this is going to penalize people when their supplier is late to deliver something, or a part is missing or an ingredient's missing that delays that time. Now you're going to start getting dinged for having low inventory at Amazon. So it's going to shift a lot to the sellers and continue to make sellers have to be on their game on how they're forecasting. But the thing they did say is during non-peak times, they are looking to reduce monthly storage fees. So they're not only taking increases, they're saying they're going to reduce monthly storage fees. TBD, I think it's going to be a big cost increase for a lot of people. I think it's going to be more than the 15 cents that Amazon is saying it's going to be. Frankly, they probably didn't even know until they rolled it out and started to see reactions, what the real case studies are going to be and the impact of this is going to be.
So I've got an idea here, and if Andy Jassy's listening, definitely compensate Sean and I for this. But I will be curious. So as we're seeing different tier rollout, let's take it to the consumer now. We're talking about the impact on the brands. So I'm a Prime member. I know now you have the option, if you're especially getting multiple items, to either get it within the 24 to 48 hour window, or you could have it delayed a couple days later and have it come in fewer packages. I think they try to present it as like better for the environment and whatever, however they want to spin it. But are there consumers, do they now offer an alternative tier where you could pay more, higher tier from a Prime membership for like same day or within 24 hours? Or are they going to start kind of bifurcating maybe the standard Prime memberships to, hey, you're now going to be 48 to 72 hours or later, which is still not that big of a difference. But I know some people in this need it now economy might make the incremental jump. I don't know what that price is, but we'll be curious if this correlates to the Prime membership offerings down the road.
Yeah. And James, I am shocked that they have not done that to date, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, they're already testing things out like that, where you get Prime Video with your Prime membership, but now you got to pay $1.99 a month to not get advertising. So it's only logical within the next few years that if you want 24-hour shipping, your Prime membership costs $250 a year. If you want regular, it's $100 and something. If you want 4-day, it's $90, and they'll try push everybody into the higher tiers. Like, it's an only logical money grab in my mind. Like it seems like they could easily squeeze that out of people. Whether that's good for the consumer, I don't know, but that's what happens when you're the largest player in the game and the most convenient player in the game. I'll just tie this Amazon issue up in summarize. So if you look at what they're doing in March, they changed their inbound fees. So you can either pay a higher fee for them to receive it and check it in inbound, and then they'll distribute it out to their networks, or you can pay to ship it to multiple distribution centers as opposed to one or two. Either way, the costs seem to be dramatically higher than they were before. So it's putting more of the burden on the seller. Secondly, they're going to start charging low inventory storage fees. So if you're not keeping 28 days of cover or longer, you're going to be penalized and have to pay per unit. Both of these are cost increases on the seller. So what can the seller do? Most likely in any normal market, the seller would raise their price and pass through that cost. But wait, with Amazon, they can suppress your buy box if your price is higher than on Walmart.com or some of these other marketplaces that don't have these same fees. So as Amazon's increasing their fees above the other marketplaces, they're not allowing you to increase your price above those marketplaces that have lower fees. So they're kind of squeezing the sellers on both ends. Hey, if you don't just eat the margin yourself, we're going to suppress your buy box and you're going to lose sales. So I don't see how this ends. We know that there's the antitrust issue that's going on with Congress and some of the lawsuits that are happening. At some point, it's going to break, right? Like Amazon can only push the sellers that they rely on. I think it's over 70% of their business is third-party sellers. You can only push them so far until they break. And, entrepreneurs are smart, right? They'll just go find another market, maybe a completely different market that isn't selling on marketplaces, and go innovate and find a way to make money, right? So if they push people too hard to where it just isn't worth the effort or work anymore, they'll go to other marketplaces. They'll just leave e-commerce completely. It's going to be fascinating to watch. But with that, we will talk about their rival who's making some big old moves, and that is Walmart trying to get into the media and e-commerce space and really steal a piece of the pie that Amazon has, because they're really the only alternative in the game in the United States right now that's even remotely close to Amazon, and diversifying away from brick and mortar. So last week, or a couple weeks ago, Walmart announced that they spent $2.3 billion, that is billion with a B, to acquire Vizio. That's a manufacturer of televisions, probably a lot of televisions that you see on display within Walmart. So I did a little bit of digging on that, and I said, hey, this actually might be really smart. Like, what's the reason that they made this acquisition? Why would they pay that much money? I thought to myself, Vizio probably sells most of their TVs through Walmart anyway, which, upon a little digging, 70% of all the Vizio TVs sold are sold through Walmart. So not that risky of a deal for Walmart, right? If they can just buy Vizio, not have to give the margin to Vizio, they can manufacture it, sell it under the Vizio name, and just sell it direct at the same price. They'll double dip on the margin and make way more money than both Walmart and Vizio were making when they were separate. But I think the other piece too, and James, you can probably speak to this, given the retail media world you live in, is Vizio controls about 20% of the US TV market, but they also have 18 million active users in the viewership data on that and with their smart TVs. So it might actually be an advertising play in a way for whatever the equivalent of Prime is, Walmart Connect or whatever it is, the play there for Walmart to get access to much more data and have a better advertising platform than they have today. So not only will they make more margin on the physical goods that they're already selling 70% of all of Vizio's market share, but then they can double dip on the data. James, what do you think the play is here on the data side?
I mean, no surprise here at all. Let's look at Walmart Connect and kind of their online sales trend in 2023 and Q4. So online sales in the US grew at a clip of 17% in Q4, 27% year on year. So in their total e-commerce sales in 2023 grew north of 100 billion. So this is definitely what Mythbusters would call a boom, not a bust. And for all the reasons Sean's bringing up, with the operating system that Vizio has, SmartCast, which has that 18 million subscriber base, which is up 400% since 2018, so massive. This is going to unlock better ways for attribution. So CFOs and marketers are going to be very happy. For those that are kicking the tires on advertising on Walmart Connect, I see a lot more dollars being shifted there. I think, Sean, we were talking earlier with this, there's now going to be more ad viewership data, tracking purchases to those ad views. And even more with this operating system, SmartCast, they already plugged in with 500 direct advertisers, with a lot of them being in Fortune 500. So the relationships are already there. That precedent is in place. So this is absolutely going to drive. I mean, no surprise. Amazon's ad revenue goes up. Walmart's ad revenue is going to go up, and I think this is an amazing catalyst to really push that through 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, I saw an article where the Walmart CEO is basically saying he's a very risk-averse person, but willing to take the risk on this. I would actually argue that this is actually a risk-averse acquisition. It is. It seems like a pretty big slam dunk since most of the volume was already going through Walmart. But kudos to him for taking a risk and expanding into a new area. But I think it'll be a boom for them. Even if the data piece doesn't pan out, just double dipping on the margin alone should pay this deal off for them within the next 5 years.
Yeah. Shout out to Dougie McMillan. There you go, buddy.
Yeah, Dougie M getting it done. Great. So, James, you want to get into our brand busting segment of the day? And
I'll take the floor here. So, if you're wondering, everybody, we're going down there with the brand Manscaped. So some of you may be aware and have seen some of their ads with Gronk in years past. I think a lot of you, especially dudes, are probably users or at least aware. How this all came about, how do we pick this one? What is the method to our madness? There's really not a method, but you know what? About 2 weeks ago, I go to my mailbox, and I am a Manscaped consumer. I've got the Lawnmower 2.0. And I get this nice like care package, and lo and behold, it's some crop soother, so very on brand. I get an extra replacement blade for my lawnmower, and then I think in the best gift of it all really was this amazing insert. So direct to consumer brands, just like take a look at this. We've got kind of this like classic, this is like a newspaper insert called the Manscaped Times. So for listeners that aren't watching, headline is "Shave Yourself, Arrival Prompts Pubidemonium." And you got a picture of a bunch of women that are kind of around an alien, and there's a nice headline there. There's what else we have?
It really does look like a New York Times newspaper article that you would find, at any bodega in New York City.
Oh, it does. And we've got some cross promotion here. So very tastefully done on other products. On the back, we've got a crotch word puzzle. And we've got some classifieds. Oh, no, this is good. I got to read a couple of these, Sean. And then we'll actually start. We'll get serious. So first up in the Manscaped, we're going to go with this with Slick Johnson, the grooming ref. Dear Slick, things are going well with my new boyfriend, but he's super hairy down below. It's like wrestling a bear wearing a wig. I love animals, but don't know what to do. What's the call? Dear Hugger, that sounds like a double grooming infraction to me. Delay of groom and not enough clipping. That's 20 yards and hopefully loss of down, if you know what I mean, Slick. Let's go to the personal ads. Let's go to the personal ads section. Got a 33 male looking for someone to lube me up and stand on me and ride me down a hill like a surfboard. I have shaved my entire body, so I will be nice and slippery. Prior experience preferred, but not necessary. Must have good balance and cool sunglasses. By the way, forgot to give the explicit warning for listeners. If you have your kids in the car, maybe earmuffs, but I digress. This is a lot of fun and a piece of direct mail. I mean, more or less that I held on to. Normally I throw that stuff right away, but this is very distinct, very emblematic of the brand story. So Paul Tran and team.
It's disruptive. It's disruptive too. Like think about how much just terrible stuff you get from brands when they send you like a boring insert, nothing you care about. Like that makes you stop and look. Like it made you smile, it made you laugh. Like you're going to tell a friend about it, maybe tell like your roommates, your wife, somebody about it. Like, I think they freaking nailed it, man. Like
Yeah.
you gotta disrupt people's daily habits with something that's fun and interesting and throw a little Easter egg in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was so inspired by this that I listened to, so Paul Tran's the CEO and founder, um, found the company in 2016, but he was at a Patterns Accelerate event last year, one of the big sessions. It's about a 45, 50-minute interview. I actually listened to that before we got to talk to this, Sean. And a couple of things I didn't know. I actually want to just kind of share the story, and then let's riff, because I think you have some parallel experience from your P&G days. So
Definitely not as fun
Manscaped
though.
was Manscaped was not Paul's first venture. This was actually like his 10th company. So I think for everyone that's entrepreneurial and you want to hit it big out of the gate, that doesn't always happen. And Paul definitely had some wins prior. I don't know the nuances of each of those prior ventures, but just someone that's got the bug to continuously build. And from the get-go, he wanted to do this one different. He didn't want to just set up for like a liquidity event or an exit in 3 to 5 years. He wanted to create a multi-generational, international, omni-channel brand that's just renowned. And he did it profitably. Within 5 years, went from $3 million to $300 million profitably.
It's
So
insane.
that's just
And
unheard of.
for folks listening, that usually doesn't happen, right? You normally take friends and family funding, VC funding, you throw a ton at advertising, you grow many years unprofitably, you hope you can get to scale to do it, or flip it to a Unilever, a Procter, or somebody else and make the profitability their problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Spoiler
kudos to
alert.
him. I mean, huge.
More on those two big co's later. And the whole premise of this was, how do you find white space in the personal hygiene category of all of them? That's where all the conglomerates play. It is so crowded. And not only that, how do you break down the barrier of a taboo topic, which is male grooming? Like, they went into this with this hypothesis that guys are probably doing this in grooming in some capacity, whether it be their chests, their nether regions, whatever else. But there was really no offering that was catered to men that could kind of make that more approachable and kind of innovate in there. And they went right after it. So D2C was the initial channel for them, but Paul knew from the get-go that omnichannel was going to be a must to meet customers where they were at any given time. So the way Paul actually unfortunately his channels was D2C number one, because that's where you own the story and those are your customers directly.
Yeah.
You had the most control, not just from a packaging standpoint, but the entire customer journey and experience there. Second priority channel, marketplaces. This is where most customers are. If they're not aware of your brand, this is where you can find them. And the third was retail, because your story is only limited to your packaging. Maybe if you do an end cap or some type of display, but you don't get to really give your unique value prop in any other capacity. That's what you're beholden to.
Yeah.
Sean, before I go further, like, how did you think about that? Like with retail, I know you did this with, Old Spice, but even with Zevo, like, did you feel like you lost owning that brand story, in retail versus digitally?
Oh yeah, you absolutely lose it. And it becomes a more general relationship with the customer once you're in mass retail, right? So I think he did it right, which is something that I've seen successfully implemented over and over again. But it's like, use D2C to drive your initial awareness, find your core tribe of fans, and then iterate too, right? It may take you a couple years of D2C to get the product right and work out all the kinks that if you launched in retail, you might find, hey, my product has a 2.5-star review because I missed some huge thing. D2C allows you to find your fans, get that feedback early, improve the product. I think they even treated it like software, right? Isn't there like a Manscaped 1.0, 2.0, things like that? So
Yeah.
use that feedback early on from your best fans, make the product better, then go to a marketplace, right? And start spending in advertising for D2C in your marketplace. And you raise your awareness to a point where, hey, maybe 10%, 15% of all America is already aware of you. So if you go to a Target or you go to a Walmart, you're not starting from nada, zitch, zero. And at least some people, when they see you on the shelf, are like, oh, I've heard of this brand. Let me pick up the package and look. But once you're on shelf, people have to be aware of you outside of retail, and you have to drive them in there to buy, or your packaging really has to work hard for you, but you don't have that much space to tell your story. So I really love the approach. I think it's the right approach for most brands, which is D2C, then marketplaces, get the data that makes sense to present to a retailer and find the right zip codes and stores that overlap with your customer. And then, launch from there, where you're not launching from a position of no awareness. You've already got some awareness built in, and you can just get that flywheel going a little bit faster. So I think his approach was spot on.
Yeah, and you bring up brand awareness. These guys achieved a 79% brand awareness of all men and women aged 18 to 35. So kind of like right in their core
Huge.
demographic. Obviously, people older probably use those products, but I mean, that's amazing to have that level of brand awareness. And how they did this, he actually created a like customer focus group, and like, okay, this wasn't early days of Facebook. This was in the late 20 teens, but created a consumer focus group via Facebook called the Manscaped Ballers. And there is an application process. So they weren't just accepting anyone. It was a little bit rigorous. They had to kind of be screened and vetted. But the entire executive team of Manscaped was also in this with them. So they had exclusive, what they started doing is they had exclusive access to like new products, give feedback, and just kind of just weighing in the brand story and like what was hitting. So they got, think about how rich just like community and feedback sources. Like I know you've done a number, like P&G has like CMK and the amount of focus groups and things that
this is the best. This is one of the best sources you can get.
Versus just having this direct access to the executive team and being able to really try these ideas here directly from your consumers and then feel like so devout. I mean, there were guys that were getting Manscaped tattoos because they felt so bought into the brand and so a part of the brand.
I don't know if I would do that. I would question who these guys are, but
I don't know.
That's great.
I don't know if I'd be scared or inspired if I met them, but it just that level of commitment, though, I think that's what any brand aspires for, right? Like you want to start a company or build a brand to make money to satisfy shareholders, but at the end of the day, too, there's so much that needs to resonate with customers and have a brand identity that people can align with, and this was absolutely accomplished with them. So I think just a masterclass on how to create a core kind of that just an amazing like feedback loop for the consumers.
And I think it's enabled by D2C and marketplaces early on too, James. If you think about it, the lesson here is for any brand that's at that early stage or launching, like use direct to consumer to find your core tribe and then reach out to them and get them into some sort of reoccurring group, right? It could be a Slack channel, it could be Discord, it could be a Reddit thread. It could be Facebook, probably not Facebook because only 60-year-old grandmas are on Facebook these days. But something that you can get people to engage with. It's not going to be everybody, right? Even if it's 100 of your top fans, that those are going to be your core power users. And if you can cater to them and people who look like them and sound like them, it's probably going to be a good base for your brand to build on. So if you can build that early tribe and create that personal connection, I think it goes a really, really long way to getting the flywheel rolling and get your brand kind of rolling downhill with momentum.
Yeah, and the theme that Paul kept bringing up was humor with a purpose, and I can vouch for this. So like when in the actual packaging, which is premium, which on the topic of premium, I mean these guys, they grew at the rate that they did while being at 25% premium to competitors. So this isn't just like an incremental 5 points or a couple bucks. Like this is a sizable leap or step up in investment, but very high end packaging. Pun intended, packaging, get it, balls.
I love it.
But one of the inserts that was in that, I recall, is like, your balls will thank you. So just like, but they're also they partner with the Testicular Cancer Foundation as well. So again, his whole thing of like, not just irreverent humor, but having like humor with a purpose. Everyone is so serious and focused on like this very sterile approach where it's like, hey, like let's take a taboo topic, like make it fun, make it engaging, but also connect it to like a deeper purpose as well, which ties right back into this, like, too early to tell it's going to be a multi-generational brand, but like the awareness that's been achieved and something that can stand the test of time and be this like durable brand because it's got this connection. And interesting, Shai. I know we're talking about the channels early. So this isn't just like a US brand, just for anyone.
Yeah, it's global.
in 18 months, they grew from one country to 39.
That's
And
aggressive.
if you think about the regulatory components of that and like packaging, like Canada requiring, like if you send anything to package into Canada, it's going to have like
taxes,
in
everything else.
French, the tax, all that comes into play with making that happen. His workaround, though, and I love how he brought this up. So we talked about this channels, D2C, marketplaces, retail. The hack for them in terms of accomplishing 39 countries in 18 months was leveraging marketplaces, because a lot of that regulatory work could be kind of offset via all the infrastructure of Amazon. So really prioritizing, and we saw this at our Amazon agency days, of like English speaking countries first, so like New Zealand, Australia, UK. So rolling that out and then focusing on the others with the localization and translation.
Yep.
So for
Then you go
those
to
that are
like
looking,
French, German, like the big markets for Amazon, and try fan it out from there.
Yep. So that's how I think they achieve that. So it's interesting because he sounds so methodical, like it was a piece of cake, but it was, everything was on fire. In retrospect, it sounds like they had this perfect plan, but a lot of it was just kind of figuring out what was working, what wasn't working, and pivoting as fast as possible, which is what you have to do in any type of business environment now.
Yeah, and I think just from my experience at big company days and small company days, the thing that Manscaped had that a P&G or a Unilever or a Colgate doesn't have is speed, right? Like they can react quickly and make changes. There's not a matrix decision making organization and it takes months to make a decision. Like that's number one. Like they can just use the data and pivot on a fly, right? That's why startups can always, out hustle the big companies. That's point number one. Point number two is I think startups just talk like a normal freaking person, man, right? Like, let's just like talk in plain language and tell the truth. Like, hey, we're talking about shaving your balls, right? Like, that's what the brand is. Like, why are we going to dance around it? When I was at P&G, Gillette tried to do this multiple times and tried to get on it, but by the time it went through all the decision making layers and all the PR people, like you ended up with stuff like Gillette Intimates or like Gillette Intimate Care. And it's like, if I'm a guy, I'm 20 years old and I just am looking to shave my chest and my privates, like you're selling me Gillette Intimates. Like, what is that? Is that a women's lingerie brand? Like, I have no freaking idea. Why don't you just call it what it is? But the big companies will never do that. So a niche like this is perfect for somebody like Manscaped to come in and say, I'm just going to have humor that ties to what the product is. We're going to tell you what the product is in the name Manscaped, and we're going to make a lot of shaving your balls innuendo, which I know a big company will never do. So when you talk about moats, it's not a real moat. Anybody could do it, but it's a huge moat against the big companies that would or just too afraid to ever do something like that.
Well, I love it. Yeah, I mean, even their name, right? Like in some ways, like did they create the male grooming category? No, but in the sense of they played on the topic of manscaping has been around for a long time, and they're like, shit, let's call ourselves Manscaped. So now they just
Just
pulled the
own it.
band-aid of male grooming in a lot of ways, and I think so. There's so many wins here that really is going to make that kind of sustainable durability, which every brand is vying for right now. But one thing I want to bring up, Sean, I think this one might be good to wrap is you brought up Gillette. But I know another digitally native male grooming company, probably about 10 plus years ago, that had a lot of steam was Dollar Shave Club. So talk to me about what was that experience like? How are you guys measuring them? I know Unilever ultimately gobbled them up and acquired them, but talk to the listeners about that.
Yeah, I mean, Dollar Shave Club was one of the early digitally native brands, right? They were venture capital funded. They had a ton of money to spend and they were growing absolutely rapidly, right? Like their model wasn't that complicated. I think they used forgive me if I get this wrong, but it was like Dorco, I think was the name of the blade company. They bought a bunch of off the shelf blades, branded it Dollar Shave Club, said, "Hey, Gillette razors cost way too much money. You can buy them direct from us for a lot cheaper." Like there's always been cheap blades, right? Cheap private labels. But they had that same irreverent attitude, right? I mean, the founder brought his personality into it with their launch video, which I think most people remember. Then they really played on, hey, why are all these razors locked up in the store that you got to go get somebody to open up the case for you? Like they really like went big with that and just started punching Gillette in the face. So, Gillette swirled. At first, they didn't take Dollar Shave seriously. It was a joke internally. Then it said, hey, we need to launch our own Gillette Shave Club, which you don't need to do. Like, for anybody listening, do not make that same mistake. You already have 100% distribution. You do not need to launch your own shave club. So they just never really figured it out, right? But the dirty secret of Dollar Shave Club is they had taken all this venture capital funding at a time when Facebook ads were very cheap and TV. They were buying a lot of TV. So they were spending more on advertising or as much on advertising as Gillette, but didn't have the volume or the business to justify it, right? So they were just losing a ton of money pumping all that into Facebook and TV advertising to inflate top line growth, which worked because Unilever ultimately bought them. But what did Unilever do when they bought Dollar Shave Club? They took the Manscaped approach. It's like, great, we've got this direct-to-consumer business that sells on Amazon and their D2C site. Now we're going to go use Unilever's distribution network to get it into Walmart, Target, Kroger, CVS, Walgreens, which they went and did. But once it got to the shelf, I think it also, once the founder left, the personality of the brand left and nobody knew what it stood for, right? So then you just became kind of the cheap discount razor brand. They rebranded the DSC. I don't think anybody really knew what they stood for. And that irreverence that initially brought them fame, they walked away from. So fast forward to, I don't have the exact data in front of me, but Unilever didn't disclose the amount, but they sold Dollar Shave Club to a private equity group they acquired them for $1 billion. My guess is sold for millions, not $1 billion, and probably retained some ownership in it. But that's a huge fall from grace, right? To acquire for $1 billion, take it to retail, lose the character of the brand, and then sell it back to a private equity firm for, pennies on the dollar. So I think it goes to show, like, you got to have the vision, you got to have the team that knows what they're doing. I think the slow build it generationally over time approach that Manscaped took is the right approach. When we launched Zevo, we did the same thing, which was kind of weird for a big company to do. And I fought a lot of people on not going big, but it was D2C year one. We partnered with Home Depot and HomeDepot.com year 2, Target year 3, Walmart year 4, so that you could sustainably grow it and build your fan base and iterate and get it right. I think that was the mistake that a lot of these D2C brands make, is they go way too big and don't have a profitable business model. And then if you're not profitable early on, you're going to compound your issues when you go to retail, because margins will get squeezed and the complexity only gets bigger.
Always have cash. Don't be over levered.
Don't be over levered. Yeah, that is true.
Cool.
Well, I think James and I probably need to go manscape ourselves so that we can go out for a fun little Friday. Not together. Fun little Friday evening, right?
What are you doing later?
I might have to try out the brand. I still use my P&G runs deep, I guess. I still use my like little Gillette version that does the job, but isn't nearly as fun.
Isn't Manscaped?
I probably got it for free in a P&G Christmas box one year. So that just goes back to me being cheap. All right. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We will be back next week with a new episode of the BrandBusters. I appreciate everybody's time today, and hope you learned something.